In the yard of a home in Greensboro, North Carolina, there is a tree that started off as a tiny sapling in a plastic cup. A sweet, kind, nurturing 5-year-old girl brought it home after a trip to the botanical gardens, and she gave this sapling to her great grandparents, who planted it in their yard. And over the years, as the tree grew and blossomed, so did she. But on a cold winter's night, just like the blossoms on that tree, she vanished, leaving behind no signs of a future bloom. Today, we will be taking a look at the disappearance of Tyarra Williams, which took place in January of 2016 in Greensboro, North Carolina. But if you're new here, hi, my name is Devin, and welcome to Kept on Ice, a true crime podcast where we focus on cold and unsolved cases. If you find cases like this interesting, please be sure to subscribe or follow this podcast. Also, as we get into today's case, I would like to extend a trigger warning for the brief mentions of human trafficking. Tyarra Williams was born on June 18, 1996, in Greensboro, North Carolina, and her mother, Danielle, described her as, quote, bubbly, spunky, and full of light, end quote. She was also described as incredibly protective, especially when it came to her little brother, Cannon. Reportedly, from as young as 3 years old, Tyarra was very nurturing and protective of her little brother, so much so that she was given the nickname, quote, Cannon's mini bodyguard, end quote. There is also this beautiful story that I shared with you at the top of this episode. When Tyarra was just 5 years old, after going on a field trip to a botanical garden, brought home a tree sapling in a plastic cup and planted it in her great-grandparents' yard. They planted this little sapling in their yard and watched it grow and blossom, much like they watched Tyarra. However, Tyarra's childhood wasn't without its own struggles. When she was just 7 years old, her parents would end up getting a divorce. But reportedly, Tyarra became a huge help to her mother and was described as a, quote, natural nurturer, end quote. And her nurturing nature didn't stop there. It started to shape her future career path. While attending Dudley High School, she joined an early childhood development program as she had aspirations of teaching children. But she didn't just want to teach children. She had aspirations of specifically working with children with disabilities. And Tyarra believed that she would be able to give these children the love and compassion they truly deserved. By her senior year in high school, Tyarra had actually moved in with her grandmother, Vanessa Neal, in the Stony Brook apartment complex on Webster Road. Now, reportedly, Tyarra told everybody that she moved in with her grandmother because she didn't want her grandmother to be lonely. But if you ask the rest of her family, they would say she moved in with her grandmother because she liked her grandmother's cooking more than her mother's. I have no dog in that fight. That's just what the streets are saying. But even if this was the case, her grandmother and her mother actually lived in the same apartment complex, so Tyarra was constantly going back and forth between the two apartments. After graduating from high school in 2014, Tyarra actually decided to take a gap year to help her better prepare for college and solidify her future plans. And by December of 2015, she was ready. She enrolled at Guilford Techival Community College, planning to major in early childhood education. And all this background leads us to January 7th, 2016. And reportedly, for 19-year-old Tyarra, this was one of the most exciting days of her life. She woke up bright and early at 7:30 a.m., nervous but motivated. She spent the morning at Guilford Techival Community College, finalizing her financial aid and getting her brand new student ID. Classes were set to begin the following week. At around 6:00 p.m. that evening, Tyarra went over to her mother's apartment. Danielle has stated that Tyarra was, quote, all smiles, end quote, showing off her brand new school ID. They spent the evening taking down their Christmas tree and even made plans for the next day. They were going to go back to school shopping for textbooks and to get Tyarra a new laptop. Tyarra also had a boyfriend at the time named Aaron, who stopped by her mother's house to hang out with Tyarra, as well as her brother Cannon, as they shared a close friendship as well. At around 8 o'clock p.m., Tyarra, Aaron, and Cannon walked from their mother's apartment to their grandmother's apartment for dinner. After dinner, the four of them were relaxing in the living room, where Aaron and Cannon were watching football, while Tyarra was reportedly on her phone. Then, at 8:30 p.m., Tyarra suddenly stands up and tells her boyfriend and her brother that she's going to meet a friend of hers named Travis, who also lives in the apartment complex. At the time, neither Aaron nor Cannon recognized the name, but they didn't think much of it. And Tyarra promised that she would be back in an hour to keep hanging out with them. She then left her grandmother's home wearing a pink shirt, a black North Face jacket, blue Levi's jeans, white Jordans with blue and green trim, and a royal blue knit beanie. As the hour went by, Aaron and Tyarra's family noticed that she wasn't back yet. So at 9:30 p.m., Aaron begins calling Tyarra to see where she is, but she didn't answer. And this was especially odd and concerning to Aaron because Tyarra was not the type to not answer the phone when he called her. And Tyarra's mother actually described Tyarra's phone as a, quote, extension of her arm, end quote. And for the first time, all of their calls were going to voicemail. With their concerns growing, Aaron decided to spend the night at Vanessa's house. Remember, this is Tyarra's grandmother, hoping that Tyarra had just lost track of time and let her phone die, and she would be back in the morning. But when he woke up on January 8th at 7 a.m., her bed was still empty. He then immediately wakes up Vanessa, who also tries to call Tyarra's phone over and over again. And it is at this point, when the phone is going straight to voicemail, that the family's panic begins to grow. Then Vanessa and Danielle realize that Tyarra left some very important items at the home. 1, her purse. 2, her student ID. And 3, her phone charger. All 3 of these items were still at the house. So now the family begins taking steps to locate Tyarra. Aaron and Cannon then tell Danielle that Tyarra said she was going out to meet a friend of hers named Travis, but that they didn't know who Travis was, just that he allegedly lived in the apartment complex. And similarly to Aaron and Cannon, Danielle also doesn't know a Travis. Now, it is my opinion that Danielle is an old school mother because Danielle knows Tyarra's social media presence and her digital footprint very well. Not only that, she also has the password to Tyarra's Facebook account. So at around 12 p.m. that day, Danielle logs in to Tyarra's Facebook and begins looking through her friends to try to see if she can find out who this Travis person is that Tyarra was allegedly meeting that night. And when she does this, she doesn't find anybody named Travis on Tyarra's friends list. But you know what she does find? Is a week's worth of private messages between Tyarra and an unnamed ex-boyfriend. And Danielle very quickly puts together that Travis is an alias that Tyarra had told her brother and her boyfriend in order to go see her ex, her unnamed ex-boyfriend, who has remained unnamed in this case. The family then spent the rest of the afternoon knocking on doors and asking neighbors if they had seen Tyarra, all to no avail. And at 8 o'clock p.m. on January 8th, 2016, Danielle officially reported Tyarra Williams missing to the Greensboro Police Department, almost 24 hours after she was last seen. Three days later, on January 11th, 2016, the case was handed off to the Crimes Against Persons Squad. And armed with these private Facebook messages, detectives quickly tracked down Tyarra's ex-boyfriend for an interview. When detectives first spoke to Tyarra's ex-boyfriend, he lied. And he told detectives that he hadn't spoken to Tyarra at all, basically since they broke up. Now, we all know this isn't actually the case because we have the Facebook messages. But on top of that, reportedly, when Tyarra and her ex-boyfriend first broke up, he didn't accept it and continued reaching out to her after the breakup. And Tyarra, being young and a nurturing person who didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings, reportedly had a, quote, hard time ignoring him, end quote, and felt a sense of guilt when ignoring him that prevented her from fully cutting him off. So when detectives confront him with the most recent Facebook messages and the couple's history, he changes his story. Reportedly, he admitted that he had been the one reaching out to her all week and that they did meet up on the night of January 7th, 2016. According to his second statement, Tyarra met him around 8:30 p.m. in his car in the apartment parking lot, where they sat and talked for approximately 20 to 30 minutes before she got out of the car at 9 o'clock p.m. and began walking back the direction to her grandmother's apartment as he drove away. Phone records and GPS data seem to support at least part of what the ex-boyfriend said. Tyarra's phone does ping in the parking lot at around 8:30 p.m. But shortly after 9 p.m., when she reportedly got out of her ex-boyfriend's car, the GPS signal stops, meaning that her phone was either manually turned off or the battery died. And remember, according to Tyarra's family, she would never let her phone battery die. After their interview with the ex-boyfriend, police then conducted a full forensic search of his car, looking for DNA, hair, or any signs of a struggle. But in the end, they found, quote, no signs of foul play, end quote. And without any forensic evidence or witnesses who saw Tyarra after 9 p.m., her case begins to stall. So detectives begin looking at other connections in Tyarra's life. Specifically, they look into another ex-boyfriend named Trey. But he was quickly ruled out as a suspect, as detectives described him as distraught and extremely cooperative with the investigation. In fact, Tyarra's mother, Danielle, said that he was innocent and was, quote, just as distraught, end quote, as the rest of the family over Tyarra's disappearance. Then, on February 20th, 2016, just 6 weeks after Tyarra first went missing, Trey was found shot to death in his apartment in Greensboro, North Carolina. Because of this timing, both the family and detectives feared that Trey's murder may be connected to Tyarra's disappearance. However, the Greensboro Police Department eventually determined that the two incidents were completely unrelated. Their investigation revealed that Trey was killed during a, quote, altercation with his roommate over a silly dispute, end quote. After this discovery, Trey was completely ruled out as a suspect with any connection to Tyarra's disappearance. And after that, no new leads arrived with the winter cold. Police had enlisted the help of tracking dogs and search teams to comb through wooded areas, creeks, and even sewer drains near the apartment complex. But the icy conditions made the search for Tyarra almost impossible. And to this day, no trace of Tyarra Williams has ever been found. Within 10 days of Tyarra's disappearance, her family set up a tip line manned by her uncle Daryl, who was a former bail bondsman. But in a lot of ways, this tip line led to more questions than answers. The first significant lead came from just 17 miles away in High Point, North Carolina. A sanitation worker reported seeing a woman who matched Tyarra's description walking down the street. He stated that the woman appeared to be disoriented and was wearing a dark-colored jacket. Sadly, this was not Tyarra. Around that same time, another witness reported seeing a woman who matched Tyarra's description on Textile Drive in Greensboro, North Carolina. Again, this was not Tyarra. Then, the family received a much darker tip. An anonymous caller claimed that Tyarra's body had been dumped in a tractor trailer across the street from her home. Now, police took this tip very seriously and searched every single trailer across the street with cadaver dogs. But again, they found nothing. And this pattern would continue for months. Reports and sightings that would spark hope but would quickly be crushed by the weight of another dead end. However, the most compelling lead came in April of 2016, when a server at a Waffle House in Jessup, Georgia, nearly 400 miles from Greensboro, claimed that Tyarra was a regular customer there. The server claimed that Tyarra actually came in several times a week, always with a group, but that she looked, quote, unhappy, uncomfortable, and never made eye contact, end quote. After hearing this, Daryl didn't even hesitate. He immediately got into his car and drove the 6 hours from Greensboro, North Carolina to Jessup, Georgia. He found and staked out that Waffle House for days, hoping and fully intending to snatch up his niece and bring her back home. During his stakeout, a motel manager nearby reported that a young woman matching Tyarra's description was staying at the motel with a, quote, suspected pimp, end quote. And it was at this point that local police got involved to assist the Williams family, as they hoped that they had finally found Tyarra. Quote, it felt like the breakthrough everyone had prayed for, end quote. Local police eventually moved in and arrested the, quote, suspected pimp, end quote, and found all of the girls who were with him. But when they take a closer look at all the girls, again, that spark of hope was followed by the crushing weight of another dead end. As reportedly, there was a young woman there that looked incredibly like Tyarra, but it wasn't her. And many of my sources stated that this woman was Tyarra's doppelganger. They looked so much alike. As months have turned into years, Tyarra has never been seen by her family again. And today, 3 main theories persist in her case. The first is abduction, as both police and Tyarra's family do not believe she ran away voluntarily. The second theory builds off of the first into human trafficking. This theory was mainly fueled by the various sightings of disoriented young women that looked like Tyarra, as well as the tips that came from Georgia. And the third theory focuses on her ex-boyfriend, who was the last person to have seen her alive. Many people have theorized that he is more involved in her disappearance than we think. And to this day, it is my understanding that he has never been ruled out as a suspect. And while there are many theories on Tyarra's disappearance, I want to focus on the facts that we know and that could potentially bring closure to Tyarra's family. Similarly, detectives in this case remain focused on the facts. They do not believe that Tyarra ran away voluntarily, and they haven't fully ruled out her ex-boyfriend. However, her boyfriend at the time, Aaron, was interviewed multiple times by police and eventually ruled out as a suspect. Though many years have passed in this case, Tyarra's family has not and will not stop looking for her. In 2018, her story reached a national audience on the show Disappeared, focusing on the extraordinary effort her family has made to find her. In 2023, Greensboro police hired 2 retired detectives to take a look at Tyarra's case with fresh eyes. But as of January 2026, it has been 10 years since Tyarra was last seen, and her disappearance remains unsolved to this day. Tyarra Williams was known as an incredibly sweet girl with a nurturing spirit. Whether it was her younger brother or a sapling from a botanical garden, Tyarra loved taking care of the things around her. Her mother, Danielle, still maintains a Facebook page for her, writing, quote, no one can hold such a horrible secret for so long by themselves. Somebody knows something, end quote. There is still a $10,000 reward for information leading to Tyarra's return. If you have any information, no matter how small you think it is, about the January 7th, 2016 disappearance of 19-year-old Tyarra Williams, please call the Greensboro Police at 336-373-2222, or you can call Crime Stoppers at 336-373-1000. I would love to hear your thoughts on this case, and as always, please be respectful in your discussion. And that concludes our story, everyone. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Please be sure to leave a like and comment down below anything you would like to comment down below. And be sure to subscribe or follow this podcast on your way out. It would really mean a lot to me. Again, thank you for listening. Never underestimate the power of your voice, and I'll see you in my next episode. Bye.